Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us for honoring Black History Month, Mind, Body, and Soul. I'm Pam Moore. We begin in Oakland. That's where some 30,000 young people have come through the doors of the East Oakland Youth Development Center in the 27 years that Regina Jackson has been its leader. EOYDC is a program that enriches the lives of young people that many others ignore. Now, this mother of 2 adult sons, after developing a generation of kids with love and discipline, hope and inspiration, talks to me about her decision to step down. Regina Jackson always seems happiest surrounded by kids. Hundreds of kids in a big crowd, small groups of kids in a class, on a field trip, talking, guiding, loving, and cheering them on through life. In fact, that has been her life for nearly 3 decades at EOYDC.
I believe that once I landed at EOYDC, that it felt more like a calling, that the work that I was there to do was to change the trajectory of young people's lives.
In 1994, she took over a good but waning program that started in 1978 and turned it into a nationally recognized one, a model for success in a troubled urban neighborhood. It has been a love affair between her and the young people of all ages, from elementary school to college graduation, and their families who have come through the doors.
The same kids that I would see fighting on the playground, skipping class, blah, 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 I've seen on college tours. I've seen graduate college. I've seen lead college tours.
She wants to shape kids out to be better people and not grow up and be somebody that they're not.
I feel like I've definitely grown and become a better person because of Miss Regina. She's very inspirational. Like, one conversation with her can definitely change your perspective on a whole bunch of stuff.
She gives you tough love.
And much needed help.
She got that magical touch. If you talk to her about something, she'll make it happen for you.
What do you mean?
Like, she stays true to her word.
Our mission is to enhance the possibility of young people by helping them to become responsible citizens and dynamic leaders.
Jada White is one of the latest heading to college.
In my environment, in my family, I was just predisposed to a lot of the failings of East Oakland. She kind of saw my potential, and she was just kind of like, no, this is not what I want for you, so you're gonna just have to live up to what I want you to be.
The neighborhood that we serve is always one foot on the banana peel. Something that is going to topple you over. And whether it's poverty or hunger or desperation or health or anger and vindictiveness, it is the depths of my soul to try and relieve some of that pain, try to resolve some of that circumstance, be the one that tells them it's going to be okay.
EOYDC is an escape from the hopelessness that dominates much of East Oakland. In 2015, Jackson rebuilt the old building, making it a bigger, brighter center of hope, inspiration, and safety, enhancing all of the programs.
Right there? Yeah. What is that?
And so much more, taking kids from East Oakland on trips to China.
We walked the Great Wall of China.
There was this huge Buddhist temple, so it was like one of the largest in the world.
To Haiti.
Right now we're in Central Park.
To New York with Raiders Nnamdi Asomugha. Holiday shopping trips with Raider Donald Penn. They've met President Clinton and been to the White House. And the Path to College program regularly takes students across the country on college tours.
The Warriors' support has been critical to us.
High-profile support from the Warriors. Steph Curry donated his MVP van. Alums, comedian Mark Curry. Singer Dwayne Wiggins.
I'm going to tell you about my personal experience with EOYDC.
All of them come back to visit the center and inspire other kids. At the heart of her work is grooming future leaders, and the training starts early. The older kids become youth leaders of the younger ones. The younger ones then aspire to do the same.
I don't see enough of us kind of making way for the next wave of leaders. 70% of our professional staff at EOYDC are alumni.
Including Selena Wilson. Learning under Jackson since age 11, she is now the center's new leader.
A lot of folks working with young people from marginalized communities don't expect much of us. And I think the fact that Miss Regina has really high hopes, but also high expectations and a commitment to not just placing forth those expectations, but supporting us in meeting those expectations, I think makes a really big difference.
And look at this pipeline of leadership of young people. It just fulfills me. But there's also a time when, as a leader, you've done the work to prep for the next generation, and then it's time to move out of the way. My heart will always be there. My spirit is in every corridor and every corner. My commitment to the organization will never cease.
Regina Jackson, who was also head of the Oakland Police Commission, has won too many awards to list. She's already working on a book about youth development, and she will also be coaching with a focus centered on healing and, of course, on leadership. Honoring Black History, Mind, Body, and Soul continues on KRON 4. Coming up, a story of overcoming racial adversity. We're hearing from the family of the first Black firefighter in San Francisco, how his daughter is remembering his legacy. Patience, humility, and strength. They all define the legacy of San Francisco's first Black firefighter, a man who overcame racial retaliation and a level of disrespect that only the strongest of people could survive. In the years since his death, Earl Gage Jr. is finally receiving the recognition he deserves, with a street named after him and a mural being painted in his honor. But those who knew him tell KRON 4's Philippe Jagal he means a lot more. They share his story as we continue to celebrate Black History Month.
With every wave that crashes onto Ocean Beach, a part of the late Earl Gage Jr. and his late wife Blondel graced the sands of San Francisco, the city to which Earl Jr. dedicated his life's work.
I felt like putting their ashes out to sea was very appropriate to sending them off together.
The couple was originally from Texas, but met and settled down in San Francisco. In 1955, Earl Jr. became the city's first African-American firefighter and overcame death threats and continuous acts of racism while he served the people.
It takes a while to figure out who's really for you.
Did he find allies?
He did. He did find allies.
Blondel Chisholm is the Gage's only child. She is grateful her own children were able to meet their grandparents. In 2017, Earl Jr. passed away at the age of 90, 3 years after his wife died. Growing up, Blondel says the family lived in a home in San Francisco's Ingleside Terrace neighborhood while racial tensions were still high.
Threats for him, threats to my mom, things like that. And I think what an incredible inner strength it must have taken to bite your tongue.
Just humiliation that he had to go through. And then to come back and lace up your boots again and do it the next day. And then again the next day. That's an incredible human being.
Fire Captain Sherman Tillman admires the courage Earl Jr. exalted being the first. In fact, he remained the only Black member of the department for more than a decade after he started.
At least when Jackie Robinson came through, it was only like, I think, another month before another Black player came along. But Earl Gage was the only Black firefighter in San Francisco for 12 years.
And for the first 6 years of his 28-year career, Earl Jr. never really had a home within the department. He was bounced from firehouse to firehouse because the racial attacks and vitriol were so severe and constant. His white colleagues would not allow him to settle down anywhere for more than a few days at a time. He eventually had to start carrying around his own mattress. By the time he retired in 1983, his last fire station was number 16 in the Cow Hollow neighborhood.
How bad did it get for Earl?
Well, there's stories of people defecating on his bed. There's stories of people peeing on his bed. There's stories of people letting him be the only one in the fire or leaving him and not helping him.
Tillman did not learn of Earl Jr.'s story until he joined the San Francisco Black Firefighters Association, where he served 2 terms as president. Shocked to learn Earl Jr. was not honored at the fire department's headquarters or the city's firefighter museum, Tillman worked for years to have a street named after Earl Jr. Last year, the San Francisco Board of Supervisors unanimously approved renaming a block of Willow Street in the Fillmore district Earl Gage Jr. Street. And around the corner at Rosa Parks Elementary School, a mural is being painted remembering the pioneer.
Without Earl Gage, there'd be no Black people, there'd be no women, there'd be no Asians, there'd be no Hispanics, there'd be no gays.
He was encouraged to follow a path that he was told would be very challenging, and he rose to the occasion.
And he did so with dignity and honor. Philippe Jagal, Cron 4 News.
Happy Tooth, but you probably do not know about the legacy he is a part of. Coming up next, we will introduce you to the Berkeley dentist who has spent nearly 50 years creating smiles. A childhood dream turned reality. Berkeley-based dentist Dr. Thomas Arnold has spent nearly 50 years teaching his patients proper oral hygiene. With a constant smile on his face and his around-the-clock energy, he has made his mark on the Bay Area. And as Cron 4's Noel Bello found out, he is carrying on a rare legacy started by his grandfather.
How you doing? You doing okay?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, all right.
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
It's not every day you get your teeth checked by a Bay Area legend.
Open up real wide. Close your teeth together.
But that's exactly how you describe Dr. Thomas Arnold, a.k.a. Dr. Happy Tooth.
And I wanted to create something to try to relieve the fear and anxiety about coming to see the dentist.
The Berkeley-based dentist and his wife and dental partner, Dr. Wendy Wilson, created the Dr. Happy Tooth character in the late 80s, visiting schools dressed as a 6-foot molar, armed with a smile and a toothbrush and floss. Together, they taught kids how to combat cavities and dental decay, even passing out a comic book they created.
And so we passed it out also to the kids. I put a lot of time in it, and yeah, it was really a lot of fun. And hopefully it did some good.
Dr. Happy Tooth was a big hit, earning Dr. Arnold numerous awards and recognition over the years. And though he doesn't don the costume anymore, relieving patients' fears is still his daily practice.
2024 will be 50 years I practiced dentistry.
How many patients is that, do you know?
Oh, I have no idea.
He's been in the same location all that time, too. In fact, the office located on Martin Luther King Jr. Way in Berkeley was originally run by Dr. William Pittman, the very first Black dentist to open a practice in the East Bay back in 1930.
Martin Luther King Jr. Way, the street in front of the office, it used to be called Grove Street. Grove Street was the colored line back in the Pittman's days, where all the Black folks lived on this side of Grove Street, and as you went up, that's where the white people lived. So a dentist has been in the same location for almost 100 years.
Having a Black dentist to look up to wasn't new for Dr. Arnold, though. His passion for the career started when he was just a young boy, visiting his grandfather, Dr. Thomas Lewis Hunter, one of the first Black dentists in the South.
I just saw the respect that people gave him and kind of work he did, and so I just always wanted to be like Papa Hunter.
In fact, Dr. Arnold is a third-generation medical professional. He, his grandfather, and his father, who was a medical doctor, all attended Meharry Medical College in Nashville.
And in the Black community, that was, very, very different during those times. We weren't accepted into some of the larger white schools at that particular time. We had to go to either Meharry for dentistry or medicine, or either Howard for dentistry or medicine.
He said being among other Black teachers and students was a nice comfort zone. But in 1972, he'd get an offer to embark on a new path after being one of just 3 graduates accepted into the dental residency program at Mount Zion in San Francisco.
All my classmates, they were jealous. They said, called me Tommy. Tommy, how did that happen to you? And I just kind of smiled.
While his acceptance was impressive, it also brought on a new challenge. Because for the first time, Dr. Arnold was learning from and alongside people of a different race.
And so I felt a little insecure, for about a week. And then I said, oh, shoot, they don't know any more than I know. And so I kind of went on from there.
What was the biggest lesson that you learned coming out of Mount Zion?
I feel the biggest lesson I learned that nobody was any better than me. I was just as good as anybody else.
Now nearly 78 years old, Dr. Arnold is still practicing with pride and a smile, educating his patients and paving the way for the next generation of dentists.
When I came out, there were about maybe 12 black dentists in San Francisco, Oakland, Berkeley, Richmond, San Jose, all around. Kind of look at myself being a great-grandfather out here in dentistry, being a black dentist. Close your teeth together.
Working alongside a diverse group of dental hygienists, Dr. Arnold says he has no plans to retire soon, but hopes if and when he does, his dental office will continue to serve the community for decades to come.
We don't have to go on a high rise to receive good dental care. And I just want this whole area and neighborhood to remember that they have a good dentist in their neighborhood that they can go see.
In Berkeley, Noelle Bello.
All right, great. Everything looks nice and healthy. All the oral tissues are nice.
Cron 4 News.
Now I want to look at your teeth now, okay? We go.
Honoring Black history, mind, body, soul continues on Cron 4. Coming up, we are tracing the history of Bay Area Black roots. The first people of African ancestry arrived in the South Bay in the late 1700s, chronicling the history of Black people in that part of the Bay Area from then to now is part of a series of books by an adjunct professor of English composition and literature from San Jose State University. And Cron 4's Hazik Madyoun has that part of our Black History Month coverage.
I wanted to research those individuals who I discovered through my quest for information about what was life like. What were the early neighborhoods? What were the early communities like? Where did Black people live? You know, how did they get here to California? Those questions are not included in the Eurocentric history books.
However, those questions and the answers can be found in the Images of America book series, African Americans of San Jose and Santa Clara County, by author Jan Batiste Atkins. The book chronicles the first Black pioneers arrived in California in the late 1700s to what was then Spain's territory.
We have the presence of people of African heritage who came to San Jose specifically in 1777.
Those Black pioneers came aboard Spanish ships as laborers on expeditions, as soldiers, and as miners. That history is documented, preserved, and on display in San Jose's San Pedro Square.
These were people of African heritage that lived in Mexico, intermarried with the Mexicans, and came to San Jose as pobladores or farmers, citizens, to help establish the very first town in the state of California, Californio at the time.
Atkins says back then, Spaniards called mixed-race Black people mulattoes. And as you can see here, this ship's manifest recorded having several mulatto passengers on board.
African Mexican, African Spaniards, African Indians, there were people, African whites, these were people who were mixed race with African heritage. And there were many of them.
Free Blacks came as settlers. Others were brought there as slaves. Those enslaved were later freed with the help of abolitionists from the church.
The very first Black church was established in 1863.
One of the most notable African-American historical figures here in the South Bay is Emmanuel Sam Mcdonald, who in 1919 purchased 430 acres of land here in La Honda, and by doing so became the first Black man to own property in the California Redwoods. Sam Mcdonald was originally from Gilroy. He donated his land to Stanford University, and it is now a beautiful park named after him in San Mateo County. I have to say, as a Black man, I felt a sense of pride when I saw his face here at the Visitor Center.
What do you hope folks take away after reading your books?
I hope that people will have a broad understanding of not only African American history, but how African Americans intersected with other cultural groups in the Valley. I think that it's really important to understand that we all coexisted together. We're all linked together.
Hazik Madyoun, Cron 4 News.
Doing things together. Thank you for watching our special honoring Black history, mind, body, and soul. I'm Pam Moore. Have a good night, everybody.